This is Daily Blast Live. We're talking about what you're talking about.
Get real.
You all ready for this? Mm-hmm. Dun 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 dun.
No.
Nope.
Y'all, just
This
stop.
is
a sham. Welcome to DBL. Happy Monday, everybody. Good weekends, good weekends.
Great weekend.
Mother's Day, Derby, a lot going on.
A lot.
time.
A lot going on. Let's jump right in, guys, because stars were posting to social media yesterday because of Mother's Day, and including stars like Mariah Carey, Nick Jonas, and Priyanka Chopra shared the first picture of their daughter. How cute, huh? And Winona Judd, who posted this throwback photo saying how much she missed her mom. J-Lo shared a throwback video of her and Ben courtside wishing their mom happy Mother's Day. Wow, that's back in the day, huh? Meantime, Sherri Shepherd had something very interesting to share about being a mom. She said it's her biggest insecurity because she always feels like she's doing it wrong. Listen, I don't know about mothers, but as a father, I totally agree. I totally agree, because there's no book. I mean, there's a lot of books out there, but listen, you just got to kind of roll with the punches when it comes to parenthood.
Yeah, those books don't necessarily go with your kid.
No.
And that's the scary thing. I think a lot of parents look, and you know, it really struck me when we were talking to Kelly Rowland a couple weeks ago when she was talking about, she's on The View, Erica. She's in Destiny's Child, Tori. She made it. She's the best mom ever. You and I have talked off camera about how magnetizing her personality is, and still she's in her car service crying in Australia because she knows that she's not going to see her kid for a couple weeks. There is this guilt that is over all parents in terms of like the time that we have to give to work to make enough money to make sure that they have some kind of life to set them up. But at the same time, you're like, are you taking away personal time where you could be teaching them things for financial gain? So I don't know. I think a lot of parents are like this. Do you work overtime and knock out some of that college debt? Or do you go play catch and talk to her about, you know, possibly, you know, what does she want to do in between, a gap year in college? When do you spend the time, Tori?
I just think I'm not a mom. I'm a dog mom, but I know that doesn't count as the same. I'm just simply saying that it used to be in the 50s, I feel like it was like the perfect family was always like what we saw, like the mom, the dad coming home. And I'm glad that at least in 2022, these conversations are very open and honest, that it's really difficult being a mom, especially with, in my opinion, not a lot of support from the government to be a parent in this country. And dads are saying it too. So it's no longer picture perfect. It's more real. And I'm appreciative of that conversation being happening because that's more nuanced and real.
How about just being a daughter, Erica? You know, me having kids, right? It's a little different. I've like really changed as a person. Once I had a kid, I became more emotional. I realized what a little jerk I was growing up. Because I reflect back to that, having my own kids. How about being a daughter? You ever come to the realization, like, you're on your own, you're crushing life? Thank you, Mom. Like, what point do you realize that?
I realized that my freshman year in college.
So pretty early, yeah.
Yeah, like when I moved out and, you know, I went to the university that my mother was a professor at, and my mom and I were like, not exactly, like, we would butt heads a lot when I lived in the house, but the moment I moved out, like now every day I'm like calling her, I'm showing up at her office, like, do you want lunch? I got a card I can swipe to get food at the cafeteria. Like, I was like always trying to be like right up under my mom. So
what do you think that change was?
Well, I think I stopped seeing her as like the person who was the disciplinarian and never letting me do anything to someone who was just trying to set me up for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm so proud of, like, I saw my mother's come up. You know, I saw her be able to, you know, not only take care of the family, but also get her doctorate and like do all of these things. So I think I just looked at her more as a woman who was able to do these things. Keep in mind, my mom was like 30 when she had me. So like the idea now that I'm 41 and I'm not a mom, like I just sometimes don't even know how she did that.
Yeah.
You know?
I totally agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, wow. Moms are amazing. So happy Mother's Day. We love you. All right. Did you guys watch the Kentucky Derby over the weekend? Because I know it's one of my favorites, my bucket list to go. There was a huge upset. A horse named Rich Strike, the dark horse long shot, surprised everybody by winning. I think it came down to an 80-1 shot.
It was
That's what the odds,
amazing.
yeah. But aside from the racing, we're going to talk about some fashion. I wanted to get into the race a little bit. But yeah, let's talk about fashion. Celebs like NSYNC's Joey Fatone showed up in style with his daughter, and Michael Phelps also embraced the floral theme theme with his wife. Bobby Brown showed up in head-to-toe yellow with his wife, but everyone is talking about Anna Nicole Smith's daughter, Danny Lynn, who showed up in this colorful dress with her dad, Larry Burkhead, who commented on how much she looks like, or at 15, looks like her mom, Anna Nicole Smith. Wow, she really does, huh? Speaking of twinning, Danny Lynn changed into this outfit for the Derby Gala, which was the same suit Janet Jackson wore almost 2 decades ago. Here's Janet in the outfit back in 2003, next to Danny Lynn. And Janet, who performed at the gala, also posed with Danny Lynn, huh?
That's really cool.
So dope.
Wow, she looked really even more grown up in that picture for some reason.
Am I wrong, or was yesterday she was like this big? I mean, Larry Burkhead, give it up to him for keeping her quiet and under. I haven't seen her age from this to just like gorgeous grown woman.
That's the importance of kids, Tori. You know, on Friday, Sam brought the kiddos over to the house. You know, Sophie stayed in the hot tub for a record amount of time.
Her cheeks smell like bright red.
I don't know how she did it, but you know, Miles was there, obviously, her son. And Miles, for me, is ground zero of the beginning of COVID. That was when Sam was at the hospital, going into labor, saying something's weird at the hospital. They're locking people off before we knew what it was. And now to see him be able to move around the house and open doors and go upstairs, it really is almost the only way you can mark time is with kids. And so I look at that as like the beginning of COVID and almost him at my house being almost the end of how we look at it. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think Danny Lynn is such a staple at the Derby. It's almost like she only comes out.
Yeah.
We only see her that, one time. But yeah, that's so cool to see. And also, I mean, that outfit, the Janet Jackson outfit, like, come on.
Miss Jackson, if you're nasty.
I liked it. I liked it.
All right, it's Monday. We're getting into the week.
Monday.
A little squeaky. Let's talk about the Derby itself. I know we're not supposed to, but can we talk about the Derby itself? Because I love it. I love my neighbor who came over and barbecued for everyone. His name's Rich.
Oh.
Okay? And we were too busy like getting the smoker ready and this and that we didn't even put money. I did put some money in there. But I bet the 2-horse, which is like Happy Jack. And then when the race came on, we were all watching. And I was like, yeah, the 2-horse. And everyone went crazy. And someone's like, I think that's the 21-horse. Which I'm like, there's 21 horses? And it ended up being Rich. And I was like, Rich, how come we didn't bet your horse? And it was crazy.
You think the universe is giving you signals.
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah.
They were.
It was crazy because they showed, if you go back on YouTube, you can see an arrow showing you how far back Rich Strike is the whole time. And the announcers don't even talk about him. They're going around, they're like, and all of a sudden they're like, and Rich Strike, oh my goodness, won the Derby. It's very exciting.
That's exciting.
Whoa, Tori, you just bring it to a different place.
I like that. I like your energy tonight.
I appreciate that. I'm not on the same level as you guys, so I'll just sit out.
No. I like this because we need to up the level.
Like, what level is that?
Speaking of lifting the level, how about this? Tom Cruise may be one of the biggest stars on the planet, but lately he's been keeping a low profile regarding his personal life. So Tom has been out promoting his new film, Top Gun Maverick, of course, but has been keeping his private life, well, private. Even his dating life has been largely under the radar. That's what I just said. That's a far cry from his high-profile past romances, like his marriage to Nicole Kidman in the 90s and his relationship with Katie Holmes. Got all kinds of attention. That's where I'm going with lifting the energy. You see a building? Yeah. There it is, especially after he famously jumped on Oprah's couch after confessing his love for Katie. That was a moment, man. That was
such a moment.
I think he looks back
so much for that.
It's one
Really?
That's a little embarrassing, man.
Bad.
I did think it was more like I thought he was jumping up and down. You're right. It was just like a jump, but he did look pretty cringe.
It was
super.
I think it went on for
Just
a little bit too.
Yeah.
Like, this is a clip, but I think that the moment went on for a little while.
Very cringy.
Do you think that's because we weren't really in the 12-hour news cycle where there would have been 6 other clips to replace this one?
I don't
like
think so.
If this was 2022.
It just was so un-Tom Cruise cool. It was just weird. It was cringy.
Well, I think also the way that the relationship played out didn't help that situation.
It was an awkward situation. Yeah, relationship.
Yes. But, you know, I think a lot of us have learned from our mistakes of how we dealt with our transparency or lack thereof. And then you kind of correct that, because not all energy coming at you is good energy. And if you can kind of like be in charge of that, it might be helpful.
Yeah, listen, I've made a lot of mistakes and learned from my past. If my worst one was jumping on the couch because I was happy in love, that would be a beautiful thing.
I know.
Amen.
That'd be a beautiful thing, yeah. TC, buddy, we love you. Coming up on DBL, Sheryl Crow opens up about the ups and downs of her career and talks about the challenges of being a woman in the music industry. And Fred Savage gets fired from the Wonder Years reboot after an investigation into inappropriate conduct. Is this another case of cancel culture? We'll talk about it next.
Closed captioning provided by
Daily Blast Live is always timely, always focused, always ready, always on cue. This May, don't miss a day. DBL is all new every day.
Back-to-back class
Hey guys, so
action.
obviously I'm on a different level than everyone else, so I'm trying to take it
Me
down
too.
a notch. We came in
We've
at
got
11.
good energy.
We gotta
Mary
go
Lou
down.
Henner will be here today.
Right, we gotta go down to like a 2. So what's up, guys? Seems like a lot's happening. The Tom Cruise thing, does it remind anyone else of the Howard Dean scream? Do you remember how Howard Dean just got canceled for making a noise? He went like, ah! And everyone's like, you're awful! It's not right. He didn't do anything wrong. He just screamed into the mic. I thought that was totally unfair. We're also about to get into Fred Savage and the Wonder Years and how he got fired. I did a little deep dig on Reddit. Some weird speculation about like maybe over drinking, over partying, but again, super sad to have Fred Savage connected to the Wonder Years and have that be the problem. That's a big debilitating thing for the show. So, did anyone else think the jumping on the couch canceling reminded you of the Howard Dern?
Yes, Howard Dean.
When he just made a noise and they're like, "You're gone forever."
That would he was what?
Howard Dean just goes,
when he said, "We're gonna go to Delaware. We're gonna
win,"
and he
goes,
made that. Ah!
Who's that?
Howard
He was
Dean.
a presidential nominee.
He was supposed. You don't remember him?
I thought he was an actor.
He
I'm like,
was.
I don't know.
He was supposed to win it.
He was like a really heavily favored.
He made one
candidate.
noise.
And it just like it tanked.
People were like, "You're awful." He's like, I went,
was
"Yeehaw."
2008? 4? No, because Barack was over.
Dude, you got like political trading cards.
Wait,
No,
when
no,
was
You're
it?
like, I'll trade you my Howard Dean for your George Bush.
2004.
People know the
Can I
Howard
get some
Dern's
props for
Howard
guessing? I
Dean
got that right?
scream. Yeah, very good job.
Thank
But he
you.
did it into the mic, so it went like, "Yeehaw!"
He got really.
And he got canceled.
But you know what it was? He got animated because he was trying to rally his base.
Yeah.
Whereas like now, when you look at like a convention, like people are yelling
I
and
know.
like talking
That
about
guy
who they're
could've
gonna
been a great
beat up
president.
and lock up and like. But he just made this weird noise. But it just shows you like he was almost ahead of his time in terms of his passion.
Totally.
And that clip just like it sank him.
I don't know why that particular thing like took him.
Yeah,
It became a
he was,
meme
like,
and
one
a
of-
gif.
I view it.
Welcome back. Fred Savage was fired as executive producer and director from the reboot of The Wonder Years. So according to Deadline, Fred was fired following multiple complaints of misconduct. A rep for 20th Television said the studio was recently made aware of allegations of inappropriate conduct by Fred, but did not go into detail on what the allegations entailed. But in 2018, a costume designer on his show, The Grinder, filed a lawsuit accusing him of verbally assaulting and physically abusing her. Fred denied the allegations and the case was settled out of court. Fred and his Wonder Year co-star Jason Hervey were hit with a sexual harassment suit filed by a costumer that case was also settled out of court as well. As of this taping, Fred has not commented on the allegations, and I really hesitate to comment myself, not knowing the details of what the allegations are.
This is why I feel comfortable commenting.
Okay.
It's something that Erica said a long time ago, and you said, I only comment if there's a lot of smoke. And it looked like every stop that there's been a lot, not only a little bit of smoke, but when it's coming out of the windows, upstairs and downstairs, these are people that do not know each other, that are not associated in any way, interact. The only common denominator is who, Erica?
Fred Savage. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah, I don't know. It don't look good.
No.
It doesn't. Especially Fred Savage taking off the Wonder Years.
Yeah, I know.
Really? Like you gotta. Like.
Yeah, I hear
That
ya.
almost sounds like a figure of speech. You'd be like, that's like Fred Savage not being on the Wonder Years.
Yeah.
Like, he really isn't.
It really, it's like Mr. T and the A-Team.
Yeah.
Bye.
Like, I mean, it don't look good.
Yeah.
It don't look good. And I think when I say, like, it's, you know, strength in numbers, there's truth in numbers, because there are people who have, like, messed up, and everybody references the same, like, time in 2004 when this happened. But if it's, like, 2004, 2006, 2009, like, it's 2020,
You know,
like, what is going on?
You know, like what a lawyer calls that? A pattern.
Yes.
And that's what you can usually bring up in court. Now, I just say this really wanting to be honest. I loved Fred Savage. I still do. I don't know the comments or what he did, but it's so painful that he's getting ripped away from Wonder Years because, as you said, they're one and the same, right? But I do have to say that I don't want to call this canceling Fred Savage if he did something wrong. I call that holding him accountable, period. Again, canceling does not need to be branded as something the left does when people do so. No, there's a consequence to your actions, and they are a corporation, and it came down to that. So enough with canceling. I'm really going to call it out every time.
Right. I mean, you talked about a pattern. Not only is it the same person at each stop, it was a costumer, it seems, in two different situations, and it seems to be kind of the same allegation over and over again. And I wonder, yes, is Fred Savage famous?
I'm
Fred's
hungry now.
sandwich should be like a definite
His
chain.
sandwich is coming down at the local
Put
deli.
DBL and open that. Yeah, I honestly think that yes, he is going to be held accountable. But like, where is his team? Where are his friends? Where is somebody to pull him aside and like we have that conversation where it gets we
You don't
turn
know
the
that they
phones
didn't
up.
try.
It's back to back. And who's hiring him after the third one? I don't know how this got to this point, because it seems like it was a number of people involved in a lot of these allegations. So I don't know how he was able to have this much access to this many people.
Well, hopefully as the week unfolds, we get new details
For
and you
sure.
kind of could sort things out. Coming up on DBL, our interview with Sheryl Crow. Is she open to finding love again at the age of 60?
The future of Roe v. Wade is unclear, and on social media, many are asking if the landmark case is reversed, what this will mean for medication abortion, the pills which can end a pregnancy. So let's verify. If you live in a state that bans abortion, could you order these pills from another state where it's legal? And here are our sources from the George Washington University Law School, the Georgetown Law Center, and the Kaiser Family Foundation. And according to the KFF, the most common way to get a medication abortion is through a 2-drug regimen. Mifepristone, also known as RU-486, followed by misoprostol. This regimen is recommended for use at 10 weeks of pregnancy or less. And as of now, you could get prescribed these pills through a telehealth appointment in most states. So what would a post-Roe world mean for these abortion pills?
The law of the state where the patient is during the telehealth visit is what would determine what is legal or not legal.
But our experts say that enforcement is the big question. For example, if you live in West Virginia and medication abortions are banned, but a Maryland doctor prescribes the pills via telehealth, it's unclear what West Virginia could actually do about it.
How they would enforce that to the doctor in Maryland is really the question. How would they be able to track that and really enforce that?
And our experts say that enforcement would be even more difficult if a patient orders these pills from a company in another country.
Ultimately, if the state can't reach people outside the state, they may just decide to kind of criminalize women themselves.
So we can verify that no, if you live in a state that bans abortion, you cannot legally order pills from another state where it's allowed. But how this would be enforced remains a very big question. With your Verify, I'm Evan Kozlov.
From an early age, I knew music was this joyful thing, this nerve-wracking thing, and ultimately this rewarding thing. It's always hard to look back and talk about who you were, because it's only who you think you were.
She has lived it all, but never shared it all until now. Earlier, we spoke to 9-time Grammy-winning artist Sheryl Crow about pulling back the curtain to her own life. Check it out.
Sheryl Crow, thank you so much for joining us here in DBL. Now, your documentary, Sheryl, why was this the right time to share your story?
I've always had real high highs and real low lows. All of a sudden, you wake up and you realize, wow, I just went into a hole. When Showtime and my manager came to me and said, we want to do a documentary, I was like, absolutely not.
Why?
I just felt like, documentaries typically are done when somebody's already, gone on to the great beyond. But after having long conversations with my manager about it, and granted, we were in the middle of the pandemic, it felt like the right time. I think if people know me by All I Want to Do or Soak Up the Sun, I feel like is a clear vision of a really happy, cheerful person. But there's, 40 years of living, of having been a school teacher and waiting tables and going out with Michael Jackson as a backup singer and waiting tables again, and then making records starting almost 30 years old. So, and being a woman in the music business, I wanted to tell my story.
Yeah, and I think all those stories you just told are the reason why you should share that documentary right now, because it shares the highs like you talked about, and you had the highs of highs, but also the lows, and I think that's where you learn the best lessons. Yes. So what moment in your life was the hardest to revisit for this documentary?
Well, I've told quite a few stories in this documentary I've never told anyone. I've had several experiences with sexual harassment that I wasn't given a platform to voice. And, we're living in the Me Too movement now, so women hopefully aren't going to be victimized when they step forward. But in my coming up in the business, there wasn't that freedom. Navigating fame was hard for me. I'm a pretty private person. Case in point, until this documentary, no one's ever seen my kids. And there were things along the way that there's not a handbook for. There's nothing to tell you how to deal with all the attention and then all of the nastiness. And that's typical, when someone rises to fame, we also enjoy watching them fall.
You talk a lot about your journey, and a lot of this life that we live is part of your relationships. Yeah. And you've been engaged 3 times. Are you open to finding love in your life?
I'm asking for a friend.
I wholeheartedly believe in love. And I have the quintessential example in my parents who've been married 66 years. And they're still going strong. And we celebrated my mom's 85th birthday yesterday. My dad's 90, and they're kicking.
Congrats.
But they also set the bar really high. I don't totally blame the people I've been with for what went wrong in my relationships. It's hard to be with a woman that's gone a lot, and I still believe in love. I would love to find that.
Because of the experience in the industry, you seem to have a perspective that I feel like we can learn from. And you're 60 years young. You look amazing. But let's be real here. Aging in the spotlight comes with many challenges. So what does, in your opinion, ageism in the music industry look like, and how can we be better for our youth?
I think it's not just the music business where women kind of get put out to pasture when they hit 40. I was lucky when I turned 40. Well, I was lucky and not lucky, but when I turned 40, everybody in the radio was 60. Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, and I was turning 40, and I was going through a crisis, like, what the heck do I do now? And we were lucky. We put out First Cut Is the Deepest and Soak Up the Sun. So I had some more years on radio, which is kind of unique because we don't hear that anymore. And I think for me, messaging wise, I want women to feel good about being their age. I want them to feel liberated by the fact that they're not competing with the 25-year-old demographic. And I do worry that we scramble to make ourselves look young in order to stay valid. I've kind of embraced the fact that I'm older, and it's not easy to see yourself get older, but it is also my way of exercising compassion.
Sheryl Crow, thank you for joining us on DBL. To our viewers, you gotta watch Sheryl's documentary on Showtime. Be sure to check out her new album. Thank you, Sheryl. We'll be right back.
Talented.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys.
Promotional consideration is brought to you by...
As we enter year 3 of this pandemic, one of the big questions we have is how much protection do we get from the vaccine or from getting COVID itself? And inside this building right here in Frederick, right next to a big open field, some top doctors are trying to figure that out. So we went inside to verify.
Every single day is something new. It's always quite very interesting.
Troy Kemp has been studying COVID-19 for the last 2 years, a big pivot from what he studied before the pandemic.
My major focus was on HPV.
That is an STI that can cause cancer. In fact, the whole lab switched gears, studying COVID-19 antibodies, the disease-fighting proteins created by our bodies after infection or vaccination.
To understand how well those antibodies maintain themselves over time.
Walk me through what you guys do here. Dr. Leisha Pinto oversees the lab. She says that this work is at times tedious and time-consuming and needs to be replicated over and over to be trusted.
Thousands and thousands of times and then many, many thousands of plates.
She says that when the pandemic first started, it was the National Cancer Institute that asked her team to pivot away from HPV to develop and standardize a SARS-CoV-2 antibody test.
We felt like really we could help.
She explains that, according to the data, vaccines will give you those valuable antibodies, at least for a while.
We just don't know how long immunity lasts because, again, that immunity is going to vary depending on the individual.
It also depends on how long it's been since the person got the shot.
They'll look at all the different color ranges.
Take this tray full of blood samples. Each column represents a separate patient who either had COVID or the vaccine. And the darker the yellow, the more antibodies.
It can tell us, exactly where maybe they're 1 month out from getting the vaccine versus someone maybe over here could be 6 months out from getting the vaccine.
As for natural immunity, meaning those who got infected but not vaccinated.
The fact that you are infected, it doesn't mean that you are protected. You have a reduced risk of reinfection compared to individuals that were not infected. But you still are susceptible to infections.
Which is why Pinto says vaccination is the best way to get protection from COVID-19. So here's the bottom line. We can verify that we do get protection from both natural immunity and vaccines, but just how long it lasts is still being studied. With your Verify, I'm Evan Kozlov.
New research shows any parent can forget their kids in a hot car. Let's connect the dots. Experts with the University of South Florida say forgetting a child isn't usually a negligence problem. Instead, it's a memory problem. They found things like stress, lack of sleep, and even a change in routine are usually involved in hot car accidents. Experts add this memory issue focuses on 2 parts of the brain, the perspective and the semantic. Perspective memory helps us remember to do something in the future, while semantic allows drivers to make the trip from work to home with ease, like they're on autopilot. When one of these functions fail, there can be terrible consequences. So how can you avoid memory lapses? Set reminders on your phone or create visual reminders in your car. Place a diaper bag or a piece of your child's clothing in the front seat. And keep anything you need for your drive in the back seat, so you'll turn around and check no matter what.
Welcome back to DBL. We're doing the math on rich strike and how much the payout would be, 80-1. Have any of you guys ever been to the Kentucky Derby?
I have.
Have you?
Yeah. I went down there.
Was it crazy?
Well, I was down there for a summer. I was filming an old show called MTV Made, where you had to coach this kid. I was a coach on that, and he lived in Louisville, so I spent a whole summer in Louisville. So I went to the.
You taught him how to bet? Exactly. Trifecta.
No, I taught him how to do stand-up. He did great.
I know,
He's on the spectrum. I think I told you.
Yeah,
awesome, yeah. So yeah, that's when I fell in love with Louisville. Like good food, good folks down there.
Oh, that's my bucket list. Erica, you seem like a Derby girl.
Haven't gone yet.
You got the outfit though. You'd have the outfit on lock. All right, we'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.